We are now in a post-Nolan world with the world of Batman and DC, and in this time we've seen the DC films try a lot of new things, do a lot of experimentation, and with that we've seen kind of the expected kind of stuff, like with shared universe kind of movies that have been so successful with Marvel. They've given opportunity to characters we haven't seen on the big screen before, and given them movies, and also some of the old favorites seen in new ways. And in this new era, Batman has sort of been pushed to the side just a little bit, if only in the sense that there hasn't been, a singular Batman focused movie where he's kind of been in only like crossovers, like of course Batman v Superman and Justice League. He also had a brief cameo in Suicide Squad. So Batman's not going to have his own movie until the Matt Reeves film. But within this time, we've seen a very interesting development in Joker, and how finally the villainous antagonist to Batman, the very popular character, has his own movie, which is quite the thing to see, quite interesting, and probably the best DC movie that they've made to date, I would say, and probably the most acclaimed. Like, it got very good reviews, it got a bunch of Academy Award nominations. It was nominated for Best Picture of that year of 2019. And of course, Joaquin Phoenix, he won the Academy Award for Best Actor for his portrayal of Arthur Fleck, who begins in this movie as the mentally ill loner in Gotham and makes his journey into being the clown prince of crime that we all know. It does, of course, come with a little bit of an asterisk, a little bit of a warning in that this isn't so much connected to those other movies that we've been seeing. It's not part of like a shared universe kind of thing. It's its own standalone film, and it also may not necessarily be the exact Joker that we know from those movies and from the comics and all that. This Arthur Fleck character may be his own character, and not exactly the Joker, but I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's the Joker. And I don't know, I kind of had my doubts about the movie. I kind of thought, a singular Joker movie, could they really make it work without Batman? Because, I mean, it is such an important relationship between the characters, and of course, we've seen Batman without the Joker innumerable times, but could the Joker really work on his own? And I had a few doubts about that, and I don't know, finally when I saw the trailer for the movie, that's when I kind of thought, okay, I kind of see what they're doing here. This could be pretty interesting, and it is a very interesting movie. I mean, it's not this special effects showcase or anything like that. Comparatively, this is a very low budget movie. When you weigh it against some of the other stuff that DC has been doing, and it is undoubtedly a more character focused film. And at the end of it all, it does actually include a little bit of Batman, or at least Bruce Wayne, in the movie. Just a little bit to, I don't know, make people not question the universe in which this exists. So I guess maybe there'll be some spoilers in here. So if you haven't seen it, I'd definitely recommend checking it out. But spoilers moving forward, it follows Arthur Fleck and his rise to prominence as Joker in this film, where it is kind of, at least in some ways, this opposite journey to Batman. Like, I'd say this would be actually kind of a very good double feature with the first Nolan film, Batman Begins, where the character kind of makes this journey. Only it's, kind of the complete opposite thing, where in being a resident of Gotham and and seeing all the crime and corruption and apathy. This down on his luck character grows all the more insane, and all the more willing to embrace chaos, and finding it all very amusing. And as he says, he's tired of pretending it's not, and all that kind of stuff. So it's a good journey in how a character views not just Gotham City, but the world itself. So where a Batman story would definitely have hope and have a willingness to fight for the greater good, to see that things could get better. This one, maybe not so much, where the character just drives deeper into this hole of despair, sort of, and sort of embitterness towards the world around him, and reaching that breaking point. And in making this transformation into this kind of character, for the first time, as someone who feels no control over their life, in having no power whatsoever over the circumstances around him, he finds that finally he does, and it's quite empowering to the character. And we as the audience, kind of every step along the way, we're wondering, how much do we share the perception of this character? How much do we really want to go along with him for this journey? And while maybe we don't necessarily agree with his demeanor, it's certainly a fascinating thing to watch unfold. A very good anti-hero kind of movie, a very good character study, where not everybody's a hero, and sometimes it's still just as fascinating to see, for lack of a better way of putting it, the villain kind of develop himself, and go on this journey. And it definitely works very well as a character study, where we spend it's just about every scene with this character, and we observe his behaviors, we observe his life, and just see this transformation where there's not really much by way of plot. And I mean, it does kind of it flirts a little bit with kind of grander plot points in the film, where we'll have something like this revelation with Arthur Fleck's mother, played by Frances Conroy, where she reveals to him that she had an affair with Thomas Wayne, Bruce Wayne's father, the famous billionaire, and that he may actually be the son of Thomas Wayne. And stuff like getting a girlfriend in the film, and seeing how that relationship develops. And as things take a turn towards the more morbid, we get these detective characters that are kind of following him around, and seeing if they can kind of, bring him to justice, and all that. But I mean, really, all of these things, all of these kind of plot points, they're really just kind of misdirects. Like, they don't really develop into bigger things. They, with the subplot with possibly discovering he is a Wayne. Well, he's not. With the girlfriend, it actually turns out to be, a psychotic delusion the entire time, where he's imagined this relationship. And with the cops, of course, they are not able to successfully bring him down. So they're all kind of false leads, and they're done in such a way where it's able to provoke us, the audience, into developing an opinion on this character, and seeing how much we are willing to invest in him. Where we wonder if maybe he should be getting caught. You know what I mean? So I think that was just enough a plot that we all kind of need in the movie. We don't need too much. We just really need to observe this character. So I think it does a very good job of that. And it is, it's a surprising kind of turn from a director such as Todd Phillips, who, of course, he's famous for the Hangover movies. That's kind of his big hit. And of course, he's done old school Starsky and Hutch. He was a writer for the Borat film, nominated for an Academy Award for that previously, and nominated for Best Director for this film. So it is kind of this interesting thing to have a director primarily known for comedies in doing a film that is kind of as dead serious as this one is kind of deep in the muck and morbid and very stark in its tone as this movie is. And yeah, what a better thing to do than get that kind of talent behind a movie like this, when we do kind of see the tears behind the clown, right? So he's a clown, the Joker, of course, but deep down he's psychotic and murderous and deeply pained. So it's kind of this appropriate thing that this surface of comedy would delve so much deeper than it does. So I thought that was kind of a good match, and Phillips definitely brings a very expert kind of direction to this character, and at the end of it all, just really kind of allowing to let Joaquin Phoenix in this role go to the places where he goes and letting us observe him as the audience. So it's a very actor heavy movie, very character heavy movie, and I think it's very successful in that respect. And then also being this comic book movie that takes things seriously and all that. With Joker, with this film, it's not, as far as I know, it's not adapted or inspired by any kind of specific comic book story. It kind of leaves that kind of stuff aside. It's telling its own story. But of course, I mean, I'd be remiss not to mention the comparisons that it gets quite a bit through two Martin Scorsese movies, King of Comedy and Taxi Driver, where we see a lot of similar stuff to that. Actually, when I saw the movie, the first thing I did actually was like, I kind of want to watch King of Comedy again. So I actually, when I got home after seeing the movie, I watched King of Comedy. I'm like, yeah, I can kind of see the comparisons there, because that film, it's all about it's Robert De Niro playing a Rupert Pupkin, the lousy comedian who lives at home with his mom and has all these delusions about getting to meet the talk show host played by Jerry Lewis, and fantasizing about being a guest and having this kind of unhealthy delusion, and all that, and taking that next step towards bringing it into reality and all that. So it's very similar to the Arthur Fleck character and the character played by Robert De Niro, the talk show host, Murray Franklin. The Murray Franklin Show, where we see this similar kind of fantasies and delusions that appear in the character's head and all that. But what really struck me is actually fairly recently, I watched Taxi Driver again, and if there's a little bit of inspiration from the King of Comedy, you could almost call this a fucking remake of Taxi Driver. It is really, really inspired by Taxi Driver. There's so much that feels insanely similar. I mean, of course, Gotham City, it could feel just like New York, and it's kind of set late 70s, early 80s. It seems just kind of by the atmosphere that we see around it, and it is about this loner character who's psychotic, just like Travis Bickle of that film, and just so many similar things. Like even like I mean, he works for this clown for hire kind of company, but they all have their own little locker room, and it kind of feels like the gang of Taxi Driver, where he's kind of uh, not really. He seems a little bit removed from his coworkers, and even like the one character, he almost the one who kind of hooks him up with a weapon, with hey, do you need a piece and all that. He almost seems, feels, looks like the Peter Boyle character, the wizard from Taxi Driver, and it's all set amidst this political campaign where we learn that Thomas Wayne, he's running for governor or mayor. I think he's running for mayor actually in this film. So we kind of draw comparisons between that and the Palatine character that becomes kind of this focus of Travis Bickle, and even in kind of the way it has the girlfriend character who ultimately you know turns out to be a delusion. Even that with Taxi Driver, like kind of like the big thing about the ending of Taxi Drivers, does Sybil Shepherd really show up, or is it just a crazy delusion of Travis Bickle? So there's all that. So it's a very very similar movie to Taxi Driver in a lot of ways, where yeah, you could almost call it a remake, and I think at some point maybe Martin Scorsese was an executive producer or something, or maybe he was. I can't really say off the top of my head, but having De Niro as part of it kind of just drives it home all the more, and kind of makes it uh, irresistible to compare. But I mean, of course, it does. It reaches a point where yeah, you can look at the similarities and maybe you can pat yourself on the back for recognizing them. Like with something like everyone says, "Oh well, Avatar. It's just like Dances with Wolves, or just like Pocahontas, or whatever." Um, there's only so many stories under the sun, I guess. So I mean, it just reaches a point where I don't know if that causes you to dismiss the movie entirely. You maybe be kind of missing out on the unique aspects that Joker brings. So I mean, those only kind of go so far. I wouldn't say that ruins the movie for me in any way, but it's there. I mean, you can see it. But I mean, in taking those ideas and applying them to this serious comic book film, it does make it pretty interesting. I mean, it's something much different than we at least see in this genre, where it isn't this action focused kind of thing. It is this very character driven film, and Joaquin Phoenix's performance is superb. I mean, for one thing, he gets that laugh down. I mean, that's a very very important thing, I guess, of the Joker. That kind of insidious, threatening laugh, where they do an interesting thing with that too, where it's like it's this medical condition supposedly, where he has a card around with him, where he can't control his laughter, so maybe at inappropriate times he'll laugh and all of that. So that was kind of interesting, and he again the laugh is great, and seeing his descent into madness is quite entrancing. I mean, Joaquin Phoenix, he's a peculiar guy. He gives very interesting performances, and I think he's kind of perfect for the Joker role, where there is a certain charm about him, but there is something that it does feel very threatening about him. It does feel unnerving, and we don't want to get too close to him. But at the same time, we can't take our eyes off him. So he really, I think he really earned that Oscar. And now we have two actors who have gone on to win Oscars for playing this character. Kind of just goes to show how impactful this character can be. And I mean, if it proves nothing else, it's that the Joker character, he's just as opportune for different interpretations, different ways to explore him, as Batman is. So I mean, the Joker, we haven't seen the last of him. I'm sure there'll be more movies. I know there've been some talks about a sequel to this, maybe, or maybe just doing something else. Maybe in like those Matt Reeves movies that will come. Maybe we'll see the Joker in those as well. But I mean, we'll see plenty of the Joker, I'm sure, just as much as we'll see plenty of Batman, a character that has endured for decades and decades, for 75 years, just as much as Batman has. And there's always going to be new things to explore. And I mean, the movie, it was released a year ago, I think. October, I think it was released. I went to see it in theaters, and I saw it with a friend of mine who, like, the very first question walking out was, okay, which is better, him or Heath Ledger? And kind of my instant reaction was, I still like Heath Ledger the best. So he'll always kind of be my favorite, I think. Though, I mean, that's the thing, that there's always going to be a personal preference for Jokers. I mean, I'm sure there are plenty who say this is like the definitive Joker, the best one that they've done. Just as people will say Heath Ledger's the best, just as people will say Jack Nicholson's the best, Cesar Romero's the best, Mark Hamill's the best, Jared Leto, I'm sure he has some fans for his interpretation as well. So I mean, there's always going to be room for more Joker, and there's always going to be certain angles that they can take with this. Because I mean, when you think about a Joker movie, a Joker origin specifically, you kind of think, okay, what kind of stuff are they going to do from this stuff we may recall from the comics? So are they going to do that whole failed comedian angle? In some incarnations, there's the wife with the baby along the way as well, who kind of gets mixed up with the mob. It sort of explores that, sans the wife and baby. So we have the failed comedian kind of thing, which is really good. You kind of think, is he gonna drop into that vat of chemicals and come out with his pigmentation altered and permanently looking as the Joker and that kind of stuff? Well, no, the movie doesn't go for this. More of like a realistic kind of take, I guess. So there's always kind of going to be something and different aspects that can be explored. Even in some of the newer comics, they've had different takes on the Joker, where he's like ripped off his face and sewing it on, and all this kind of crazy stuff. So there'll always be aspects to explore, which is quite exciting. But I mean, the movie itself, as it stands, it's a great exploration of the character. Whether or not we can say it is definitively the Joker or not, or just kind of this character who happens to share all the aspects of the Joker. And it's not a comic book movie in the sense that it follows a comic specifically, but of course they kind of work in this stuff about Bruce Wayne, where he's thinking that he might be related to Bruce Wayne, might be Thomas Wayne's son, and all that. And I guess they just couldn't resist, as when the film kind of gets into its final act, and the most turbulent part of his journey is being entered, and inspiring all these riots with people in Joker makeup and clown masks and all that. I guess they couldn't resist to include part of Batman's origin in that, and in showing that in this interpretation, Bruce Wayne's parents are killed by a thug who is inspired by the Joker. So uh, they fit that kind of stuff in, which I guess they couldn't resist doing it. I guess just to give it more of a feel that it belongs within the comics. But I felt, maybe that was a little unnecessary. If that's kind of one of the, if there is, kind of a big a criticism, I should say, that people have with the movie. It might be that, where it just didn't seem all that necessary, but it works fine enough. I mean, it doesn't ultimately affect the movie negatively in any kind of way. It's good enough in what it sets up, and this whole rise to prominence, his delving into madness, and really the kind of show-stopping moment where he does get on Murray Franklin's show, and he gives that whole speech, and you get what you fucking deserve, and kaplow. It's a shocking scene, but that feels like it does belong in one of the comics. You know, it feels very much at home within this dark world of Batman, where there is crime and corruption and despair and a lot of darkness, a lot of pain, but there is hope in Batman becoming the savior of Gotham. So maybe by including just that faint glimmer of hope, you don't quite walk out of this movie in a completely negative worldview or anything like that. Kind of in the back of your head that if this is truly the Joker, then Batman's not too far off from battling against him. I have a feeling that the two will be destined to do this forever, as paraphrased by the Ledger Joker, which speaks a lot more truth than maybe the sequel baiting that it may have been intending at the time. So it's this eternal battle, and we get to see more in depth the Joker's point of view, and more in depth the negative side of things. So it's quite interesting. I think it's a good movie. It's really good for all. For all its the comparisons that you can make to movies, it's ripped off. For all the qualms you might have about kind of working in the whole Bruce Wayne thing, it is ultimately a very, very well done movie, done with a great performance by Joaquin Phoenix, of course, an Oscar-winning performance, and top-notch direction from Todd Phillips. So it's definitely a worthy movie, and it's one that, quite frankly, I've enjoyed more than anything else that the DC universe, the DCU, has done. So I mean, there's big special effects spectacle, but then there's real character development, character focus, and that it kind of ultimately wins out against all the top-notch special effects and world building and crossovers and Batman and Superman fighting and all that. So yeah, that's the power of the Joker, I guess. So definitely a good film. That's my review, Joker. And thanks for watching. Be sure to comment, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff. And until next time, that's life.